Hello, this is a video just to address the recent Eminem leaked songs that have sort of been plaguing the internet for the past week now. It's come up to. I have been able to find a link with the majority of the songs together and then add a couple of other bits after. But I believe I have heard all of the ones that have leaks in total, so I'm just going to have a little discussion about them, about what they were supposed to be, whether they could still be used for anything, which seems quite reticent on repurposing leaked songs, but let's just for six, let's just say that it did happen. Um, yeah, so I just try to go through them from what I can recall and just from because the ones I heard weren't in what seems to be the official track list that's been given out. So I'm going to be referring to that a bit. But we'll just see how we go through all the songs that we have. The first of those being Marshall Powers. Um, Apart from the title, which is a bit strange, this is an interesting track. This was apparently recorded for the Kamikaze album, but didn't make it because M made an allusion to this in an interview, saying it went too far. Which, from having heard it, I don't quite know what he means by that. And considering Kamikaze was an album which supposedly just been like just recorded, it was just the songs that he was thinking of at that time without much purpose other than to respond to the revival reviews. I'm going to see why this song couldn't have made that album. I mean, it's not necessarily complete. A complete version would be better, but it's got a nice Dre apparently produced quite bouncy beats to it, and M's lyrics are very good on there. So it's certainly better than some of the songs that made Kamikaze, so it's a bit of a shame it didn't make the album. Next, we have Love Drunk, which is from the Relapse era, which quite a lot of these songs are, so you'll be hearing that a lot. Um, Love Drunk, in terms of its concepts, deals with um, um, each verse is dedicated to a particular female celebrity. The first being Portia de Rossi and Ellen DeGeneres. Second being the play girl, the Playboy model who's was who has his wives in the Smack That video, whose name I can't remember at the moment. Um, and then the third is about Rihanna, as ironic considering all the times that they have collaborated since this. Um, but yeah, certainly in terms of its concept, it is kind of similar to Same Song and Dance, so I can see why this didn't make the album. That song certainly is better overall, I feel, than this version than this song anyway. So yeah, definitely made the right choice there. It could have been used for some as some bonus stuff perhaps, but anyway. Um, I'm Twisted Freestyle is just a verse with some about 16 20 bars or something. Um, some of the lyrics did get repurposed into Fall of a Kamikaze, so this is that period again. So that aspect, there's not really much else we could see from this. If it was initially supposed to be a larger song of some sort, then you would have to hear what that was like to be able to properly judge. But from what it is, the bits that made Fall were great, and the rest of it is just fine. Sociopath featuring 50 Cent, Relapse era again, a very typical Eminem zany track with 50 Cent, whose verse was actually repurposed for Is This Love for the Curtain Call 2 compilation. Um, it seems to fit this song better, though, in terms of just the craziness of it. And 50 helping out with the chorus and the hook, and a bit of the end of M's second verse on here. Yeah, there's a very nice chemistry between the two of them on here. It feels, yeah, they seem to work very well together on here. So it's a kind of a shame that this version of the song didn't wasn't used for anything. I can again with some of the lyrics in it, I can perhaps see why it was felt not to be used, but I think it worked quite well. I'm Sorry Seasons, which was apparently supposed to have been the initial first single for Recovery. It's certainly that period. It's that style of song. Supposedly, it's a apology song to Kim. The She is never mentioned in the lyrics, so take that with a grain of salt. Um, and the fact that it was supposed to have been the lead single as well. I mean, in terms of singles, I mean, Not Afraid made a lot more sense as a lead single, in terms of its theme of triumph and overcoming the drug addiction. uh, but this song was supposedly didn't make the album because of sample clearance. It feels quite heavily on interpolation of Stairway to Heaven. And yeah, it's a shame that it didn't get used in some way. It certainly fits with the rest of Recovery, though in terms of the content, not necessarily concept, it is, I suppose, quite similar to some of the other, like 25 to Life, to an extent, Spacebound. It's kind of similar to those songs. So perhaps that's why, another reason why it didn't make it. Um, Follow Me featuring Nate Dogg. This sounds like quite an old song. Perhaps, well, certainly after the Eminem show, 50 Cent and G Unit are mentioned in it, but certainly not too far after it, from what it sounds like. Um, Interestingly, Nate Dogg doesn't do the actual chorus. That chorus is Eminem. Nate does a verse and then a bridge leading to M's final verse. I don't know from like the vocals that Nate recorded whether they were meant to be redone before the song was initially scrapped. Some of the vocals sound a little bit weak. But, I mean, it is quite a mellow song anyway about groupies. Over a Scott Storch sounding beat. I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out it was Scott Storch. It's certainly got that era of Scott's sound with the Middle Eastern strings and that kind of thing. So either it is Scott or it's M or Dre doing a very similar production. But even though it wouldn't necessarily fit on Eminem show. Perhaps could have made it for Encore. It seems that sort of time. It has certainly been better than a lot of songs that did make Encore. But yeah, it's kind of a shame it didn't get used for anything. Perhaps as a a bonus track for the Eminem show, considering some of the unreleased bonus stuff that made, like the 20th anniversary edition, well, wasn't that great. Um, Keys to My Room, another Relapse era sex song. Not much else to report about it. That doesn't really add anything that no other song on Relapse did. So this certainly wasn't going to see an album. Certainly not that album anyway. Um, Trade Off featuring Slaughterhouse. What featuring Slaughterhouse is basically a Slaughterhouse song. It's supposed to be from their Glass House album, which didn't get released and was apparently completed. I certainly heard reports that it did actually get completed, but just didn't get released. So someone please leak that album. That's something I'd love to hear. But this is certainly a great collaboration between the set of them. They're all great lyricists, and do some uh, you know great lyrical work on here, trading back and forth with verses. Crooked only gets one verse, and I think Joe Budden only gets one verse, but Royce and Joel Ortiz get a couple of verses, as does M, and he also does a bit of a like, kind of third verse outro, which Royce interrupts so they can hear the rest of the album for a nice bit of levity on that track. Yeah, I mean, again, without actually hearing the entirety of the album and seeing how this would have fit onto that, it's a bit difficult to properly judge. But just release it. Come on, release the whole album. There must be some great stuff on there, I'm sure. Um, Jump Out, a reference track for Dr. Dre for a Detox track, presumably. Not a lot else to say other than it's just really interesting hearing. Um, Obviously, M has written for Dre in the past, and it's just always interesting to hear how Dre would have sounded performing this track, considering M's style is generally quite different to Dre's in terms of delivery and lyrical content, and this is certainly one of those ones which is quite a different track for Dre to have performed. So it would have been interesting to hear that, but other than that, with all the detox leaks would have been interesting to hear how Dre would have sounded doing them. There's enough of them out there that you could actually make a detox album, and I'm sure people have, and you can add this to it. Ritz sounds like it's Marshall Mathers LP2 era, or kind of just before then, when M was doing all of his features that involved, talking about takeaway food and shopping. This seems to be chock-a-block full of that. I don't know if it's M in using some self-awareness to parody that and really overdo it. Either way, it certainly wouldn't have made Marshall Mathers LP2, and don't really see how it could have fit onto any other project. So, maybe it could have been a bonus track for something. Freak featuring Anderson .Paak and West Side Boogie. Again, a collaborative track, really. M only does the final verse. Anderson .Paak does the first verse and the choruses. This was supposed to have been a song for the Bodied soundtrack. Bodied, the film that Eminem was involved with in 2018. So without actually knowing what the Bodied soundtrack would have been like, it's difficult to kind of judge this. Apparently, it was actually snippets of it were actually heard in the film. I'd have to go back over it again to decipher for myself. But it's a fun, funky track. Yeah, certainly wouldn't have been an album cut, but as a soundtrack song, it's pretty inoffensive. Then Take It um, seems to be a post Marshmallows LP pre Eminem show track. It's just like a verse and a chorus. So again, more could have been made for it to actually be used for anything. Because it deals with a lot of the legal issues that Eminem was facing at the time with the pistol whipping and the sentencing he was getting for that. Um, so if I don't know if the other version would have delved more into that. It certainly wouldn't have been an Eminem show track, but again, it could have been a bonus track if more were done to it. Antichrist, a skits and track. So the skits is just like a person complaining about devil, the hip hop being devil music, and all the things that it talks about, and there's like clever bits of backmasking in it, which just does silly things. Which, so it would have led into Antichrist, which actually did make it on to the death of Slim Shady. I didn't realize it was actually as old as 2005. It was supposed to be recorded, possibly for Curtain Call or whatever album would have been, after Encore, which I mean, is quite obvious why it didn't make Curtain Call. If it was going to be for an album of that kind of time, it would certainly have been a very demented album because the track is this version of the track is certainly very demented. Whereas the current version that we have just kind of deals generally with woke culture. This just takes Slim Shady just going full in on child molestation and even up to child murder. Um, there's quite a few Michael Jackson references. So again, this is another reason why it obviously didn't get used for anything. Um, there is quite a funny skit at the end where Eminem is arguing with the devil about how far he's going in his music. Like, even Devil's saying that this is too far, and Eminem goes, "Well, if Bizarre said it would be fine," and Bizarre comes in and go, "Oh well, I talk about." Fucking pit bulls and raping my grandmother, but this is too far. So again, that's quite amusing. And in terms of like the actual theme of the death of Slim Shady, it does actually quite work because just in terms of showing how far Slim Shady would actually go and would actually do some cancel worthy lyrics. Um, but and if we had this version, we wouldn't have gotten the bizarre verse that happens on the album version, which would have been a bit of a shame as well. Um, yeah, it's so it certainly would have livened that portion of the album up a bit, but whether it was worth taking the risk just with those lyrics is another matter entirely. Uh, Sexual Healing, two versions of which is what is this love ended up becoming for Curtain Call 2. So this appears to have been something of a reference track for Dr. Dre. Certainly, the only differentiation between these two versions is that one version has Dr. Dre actually doing part of the first verse, and the other version has Eminem doing those lines instead. So I don't know how much of it was actually supposed to be Dr. Dre, but yeah, that version of the song could have been interesting. A nice Dr. Dre and Eminem collaboration if it was supposed to be a detox track or something. But you know, apart from that, it's kind of just fine for what it is. Um, Back and forth, the original version of Discombobulated. So this apparently was recorded Relapse era as well. It's basically the same track as Discombobulated, just the verses are quite different. I mean, Discombobulated is all you can really say about it is that it's the best thing to come off of that god awful side B project. So whichever version you have, I mean, they're both kind of like fine, really. It's kind of, the beat and the chorus is what really drives it anyway. Um, we have a Paul skit, followed by Christopher Reeves, the original version of Brand New Dance, which again ended up on The Death of Slim Shady. In the Paul skits, this is clearly recorded before Christopher Reeves passing. Um, so it's just generally talking about oh Em, you're going too far by recording this song. It's not really Superman. Um, and then the version of um, Christopher Reeves that we get on here is basically the same as Brand New Dance, just a few lyrical alterations. In the original version, is Saddam about to drop the bombs at Kim Jong Un, and there's a bit in the third verse where Caitlyn Jenner is mentioned, which was speculated to initially have been Margot Kidder. It was actually Brittany Murphy is revealed on this leak. In reference to her dancing to Without Me at the VMAs or something like that. I think it's supposed to be. I mean, Em and Brittany Murphy work together anyway, so yeah, not too much of a surprise. But considering her passing, it made sense for her not to be mentioned on the version that we got. There's also an extra bridge on the album version that wasn't present on this one. Um, but yeah, apart from that, it's pretty much the same as the actual version that we've heard. Um, my darling, the bonus track for Relapse. This version has a skit at the beginning, a bunch of kids breaking into like a warehouse or something like that, finding the Eminem chainsaw and hockey mask, and they're eventually found and presumably murdered. But then Eminem wakes up and it's all a dream, um, which leads into My Darling. So presumably this was initially going to be the intro for Relapse, um, which was then replaced by the Dr. West skit and 3 a.m. Which, I mean, the Dr. West skit is a very good skit, so it would have been a shame to have not seen that used. So I'm kind of, in a sense, happy of the version that we got. But this intro is quite a typical intro. It makes sense for him, and the actual version of My Darling here isn't too different from the version that we get. Just M performing Dre's vocals again. This before Dre had his chance to record it. Um, so it would have been interesting to see how the album had sounded with that as the beginning. But again, I think the version that we got worked better overall. Then Careful What You Wish For, again, bonus track for Relapse. Um, the only difference with this version is that the intro news reports are extended and some are moved to the end of the track as well. So it makes the overall song like 6 minutes. It's a lot longer than the version that we heard, which is a lot more concise. So, in that sense, while it is nice to hear the extended versions of the reports, obviously the concise version is easier to digest and works better for that. Um, then we get a few more demo and alternate versions of songs that we're already familiar with. Um, this is, which is the demo version of Survival for the Marshall Mathers LP2. Not a lot different about this version. Just it sounds, from what I can tell, the only difference is um, there's less instrumentation and vocals for the chorus, and some slight bits of the beat are I think different in the verses. But apart from that, it is basically the same song. So I mean, check it out if you want to hear what the alternate version of Survival sounds like. But apart from that, it's not really worth bothering too much. Um, Stepping Stone from Kamikaze is just basically a different beat with the chorus over it. I don't know. Presumably this was the initial beat, and then once M started finalizing what the lyrics were going to be for the song, decided to change it to what we have now. This beat isn't too dissimilar from the version we got, but it's certainly more bare and stripped back than the version that we have. So for that, the album version is certainly better. But this is a older version of my first single from Encore. So I didn't think there was any alternate versions of those songs, but apparently there are. Again, this isn't that different at all. But the only difference I think is there's a slight difference in the chorus. All the verses seem to be exactly the same. So again, not necessarily worth digging out, but it's an interesting listen nonetheless. Um, Little Engine from um, Music to Be Murdered By. Um, Similarly, very much the same as the version we got, just the third verse and the bridge leading into it are slightly different, which is a bit of a shame because this alternate demo version, the lyrics that are on the third verse are actually a bit more in keeping of the rapid fire lyrical style of the rest of the song, whereas in the album version that the third verse kind of slows down a bit. So, and considering how short the song actually is, it probably should have been a way to just fit all of it in together. Just change the bridge a bit to have both versions of it in, and just adds the like 8 bars I think it is a difference in the third verse into it. So yeah, it could have all worked together, I'd have thought. But anyway, so apart from that, it's just exactly the same. Another Music to Be Murdered By track, No Regrets. This version has Diego Dope performing the chorus instead of Don Toliver, so as a reference chorus. And some of the second verse the lyrics are a bit different. This version doesn't have the apology lyrics to Tyler the Creator and Earl Sweatshirt, and I can see how M would have wanted to keep that version for the album. There's a bit more to talk about. I mean, No Regrets itself isn't a song I'm particularly crazy about anyway, so I'm not that bothered about an alternate version to it anyway. Then we get Smack You, which is one of the songs, really along with Antichrist, which has had the most discussion, as this is a diss track towards Ja Rule, so at the height of the Ja Rule beef. It also goes in quite heavy on Suge Knight. So it takes interpolations of Tupac's Against All Odds, and quite notably the intro to Bomb First with the Should Have Shot Me sample, as many people have believed it actually says Shug shot me, and certainly this version is certainly used to make it sound like that is certainly what's being said. So I don't know how much M is actually playing into that conspiracy with it. But so but he certainly uses his lyrics and the chorus or Hook to say to kind of implicate Suge for or certainly blame him for the murder of Tupac and Biggie Smalls. And the actual disses to Ja Rule aren't too dissimilar to some of the stuff that we did hear from that period. Just a bit more uh, in depth, but there certainly is more about his relationship with Suge Knight and trying to kiss up to him and become the new Tupac and that kind of thing. Um, in terms of like the other diss songs that were released around that time, I wouldn't necessarily say this is one of the stronger ones. I mean, M's Ja Rule disses seem to work best just with the involvement of everyone else. The D12, Obi Trice, G Unit, Busta Rhymes. It was just all of them kind of coming together against Ja Rule that really did it for him. Um, but this isn't a bad song particularly. I mean, he certainly flows well on it, and the lyrics aren't that bad. It's just not necessarily one of the stronger songs from that time period, and certainly I don't imagine it would have made an album. So it wouldn't have been anything else except for a leaked song. So yeah, that is my overall view on all the tracks that have been leaked thus far, and because if any more are going to turn up. Um, I say, some of them could have been used for things, and a couple is a bit of a shame they weren't used at all. But majorly, you can kind of see why these songs didn't make particular projects. Um, but yeah, again, it would be nice to hear some of them get some life in some way, shape, or form. And it's very unlikely that M would do anything like that. But we can only hope that some of the better ones could have been used or could be used again in the future. But those are my thoughts.